Mo Goes From Rags to Riches is an episode about Mo's bar rag, its extensive history, and its relationship with Mo. And it talks. It's a talking bar rag. Okay, so you can already see why this is considered one of the worst Simpsons ever, right? Like, seriously, what is this? Why would anyone care about Mo's bar rag? This would be like doing an episode about the bear in Mr. Burns' office. And even that terrible idea has more potential because it has a frickin' bear in it. I have never once wondered about Mo's bar rag, and y'all have seen the random minutia I think about in my free time. But let's be open-minded. It's clear that this rag is merely the framing device to do a bunch of comedic vignettes throughout history. This has more elements of an anthology episode, rather than a regular narrative-driven one. You rarely hear anybody talk about whether the content of these little segments are any good. Are fans just overreacting to an eye-catching gimmick? Are we just being humorless grumps about them doing something silly? Is Mo Goes From Rags to Riches really the worst episode ever? Let's start out by looking at all those historical vignettes. These sort of anthology episodes live and die by the quality of their individual segments, so let's see if any of them are actually funny. This episode goes to medieval France, a Dark Ages cathedral, then Persia, Spain, England, Italy, the American Civil War, the Great Depression, and finishes at Mount Everest. If you think this is a lot to fit into 22 minutes, don't worry, because only 2 of these are actual stories. And they are, thankfully, both pretty solid. Like, the medieval France story isn't exactly reinventing the wheel. It's your typical Burns is a tyrant thing. But tyrannical Mr. Burns has always been this show's bread and butter, and their rich pedigree shines through here. I love how he pays 2 coppers for 25 years of work with only one 15-minute déjeuner. How he pointlessly slaughters these sheep and has these guards ready to go to burn down their house. None of this is groundbreaking Burns material, but it is a nice representation of how awful serfdom was. Then you have a montage of Marge weaving, with Homer repeatedly going off to war and getting injured in progressively horrifying ways. Since they're in France, it's mandatory that they go for the stupid Flanders joke, but whatever. Maybe my favorite part is listening to Bart and Lisa's terrible French accents. They're like, "Mama, mi estomac." Like, what you just heard me say, that's how Yardley Smith does it. She's barely trying here, and it's amazing. I don't want to overpraise this, because the ending is fairly weak, and there is a palpable self-aware air of this being schlocky nonsense. They're openly doing corny shtick that makes little sense. But that's totally fine, because it clearly understands what this episode is. If the framing device is a talking bar rag, then it should lean in to being a ridiculous farce. Then we do the whole Dark Ages thing with the Viking attack, which is mostly annoying, but thankfully is brief. Oh look, they're using a person's head as a battering ram. This monk didn't have a vow of silence, he just didn't want to talk to him. Now Homer's doing this for some reason. Here's where they highlight the magical tapestry element, that the demonic sheepwool made Marguerite weave the future. There's some intrigue here. But this literally never comes up again after this point. They never look at this tapestry again. This episode breaks the cardinal rule of writing. When your story includes demonic sheep, they have to mean something. Come on, this is Demonic Sheep 101 here. Then we go to Persia, get a brief appearance by a squeaky-voiced monk, and do a parody of the 1001 Nights folktales, starring Lisa and Nelson. This is easily the most structured part of the episode, being such a direct homage, even ending with a "the end" sign for completeness. Unlike the extremely ridiculous and loose medieval France, you know exactly where this thing is going. But for what it's worth, Lisa and Nelson play their roles well. We get some nice banter as Nelson threatens her and provides story notes. I like when Jimbo comments on him throwing away like 500 wives. Nelson quips, "I think it's weird you're counting." Then we have other jokes, like Shauna whining about leaving the pit. Plus, we get Janie material, an actual Lisa and Janie friendship moment. That's how you really know this whole thing is a fantasy. After this point, however, all the flashbacks become limited to one-scene jokes. One after another after another. They've gone from doing full comedic sketches to more of a montage, akin to Bobo's travel sequence from Rosebud. I do find this format shift disorienting, where I expect a couple filler scenes, like the earlier Viking one, before getting to the next real set piece. But that moment never comes. The closest we get is the Sistine Chapel. Now, casting Julio as Michelangelo is pretty fun, but even this is like 2 scenes long. There's no flow to the back half of this journey. It peters out into a parade of mediocre gags. Like, the Spanish execution joke makes no sense. Like, what did he expect to see? This English execution is sorta witty, if only I hadn't seen this joke 1,000 times by now. Then a quick fake-out jab at the Confederacy. And this rag soup thing in the Great Depression is probably the worst joke in the whole episode. Why are you making us watch Homer cut off a corn? Did Matt Groening request this joke? Oh wait, actually this Mount Everest joke is the worst thing ever. Worst climbing Everest. Ugh, terrible. I hate you, comic book guy. I hope you crash into that mountain. Now, I know what you're thinking. Here's where the real Jims is gonna complain about continuity. That this flashback suggests that Mo is a Yeti, or the adoptive child of a Yeti, or whatever. That's pretty stupid, right? But honestly, I have no problem with it. Everything about this so far has made it abundantly clear that the whole thing is this whackety-smackety farce. The demonic sheep, the Arabian Nights parody, this same rag being a part of the Sistine Chapel. It's all bullshit. At no point are we meant to take the talking bar rag story seriously. So why take this seriously either? At this point, you might be wondering, where is this whackety-smackety bar rag journey taking us? Like, what is the punchline of all this nonsense? Oh, there's no punchline. The ending is actually a treatise on how much people love and appreciate Mo, and he learns that he no longer needs to cling to his old bar rag. It's a character-driven resolution about allowing ourselves to let go. You see, the title, Mo Goes From Rags to Riches, is a reflection on how, by letting go and accepting your friends, Mo truly is rich in life. I have watched this episode at least 5 times in preparation for this review, and every time I am surprised that this is the ending they went for. I'm just baffled by it. So you're telling me that the talking bar rag episode, full of demonic sheep, Vikings, and a Yeti, went for the schmaltzy ending. They're gonna touch my heart and make me deeply care about where these characters end up. Well, now I don't know what I think about that Yeti thing. If the thesis of the episode is about friendship and Mo's attachment issues, why are we doing this nonsense? Why can't you just have the Sizzlax toss baby Mo a dish rag as his blanket or whatever? Something mundane like that. At least prepare us for the down-to-earth shift in tone. A character-driven resolution needs some semblance of a character-driven plot, or at least a consistent theme tying disparate elements together. Like that anthology episode, Love Springfieldian Style, gave us 3 entirely different settings, but they're all variations on love stories to drive home a central theme. To be fair to this episode, it does open with a discussion about friendship, with the barflies laughing at Mo at the idea that the rag is his best friend. This theme is, indeed, built into the fabric of the episode. I would argue that it's introduced in an extremely clumsy way, with this Mexican Duffman joke, and Carl being like, "Oh, who is your best friend?" Furthermore, the B-plot is about Bart and Milhouse's friendship. They'll throw in interjections like this moment, showing off Mo's love of his rag. There is a clear effort in making us care about this odd relationship. But so much focus is given on this fantastical journey of the bar rag that it undermines these efforts. They bring in Jeremy Irons and literally put a spotlight on him. If this isn't what the episode is really about, why do we have to sit through 10 minutes of it? It would be like if Rosebud made us sit through 10 minutes of Bobo flashbacks. The whole thing feels like them killing time, telling us a handful of shaggy dog stories to hide that nothing really happens in this episode. Oh, speaking of nothing really happening, we should talk about the B-plot. This might be the most simple B-plot The Simpsons has ever done. And that's saying something for a show that once had Bart and Lisa chase a balloon for 3 scenes. Here's a recap of what happens. Bart insults Milhouse. Milhouse gets mad. Bart fails to make up with him. Bart fails a second time. Bart gets punched, and the two are friends again. Scintillating material. Plot beats? What are plot beats? You might be wondering, what could Bart have possibly done to make Milhouse so mad? He said, and I quote, "That's even sadder than being friends with Milhouse." The audacity. Okay, I'm glad that Milhouse finally found his breaking point, but this is some weak sauce in starting a conflict. The rest of the B-plot is basically that joke from Cape Fear, where the guy is like, "Come on, I'll be your friend. Oh, you're mean," with Milhouse shutting him down repeatedly. It's nice seeing Bart have to grovel, but a B-plot cannot live on groveling alone. They'll do jokes, like Bart throwing a rock, which gets lodged in Milhouse's throat, and then Kirk throws a rock, which gets lodged in Luann's throat. I wish I were passed out right now. Or how about this The Wriggle CD that Milhouse has? You see, it's like The Wiggles, but is spelled slightly differently. I wonder if their music could be played on a Maple device. They go for the ironic ending, where Milhouse confesses he wasn't comfortable having the upper hand, and Bart says, "From now on, I'll dominate you in ways you don't realize." I like how the story with the Ernest character conflict ends with the wacky ironic ending, and the story with the wacky ironic conflict ends with the Ernest ending. It's like this whole episode is one giant screw the audience joke. There's just something about this thing that feels wrong in every way, that every one of its instincts are the opposite of what you'd expect. Let's not do the feel-good dance sequence at the end of the episode, let's have it at the very beginning. Let's open the town hall meeting, but do it at Moe's. Let's show the location of the Simpsons' basement stairs and actually put it in a logical place. That's its biggest sin. How dare you try to fix 742 Evergreen Terrace? Seriously though, it is fun when episodes zig instead of zag. Sure, opening with a dance sequence in a non-musical feels extremely jarring, but it's way less cliche than putting it at the end. To its credit, Moe Goes From Rags to Riches always keeps us guessing. Without any prior knowledge, no one would ever predict that this Moe friendship discussion would take us to Persia, the Sistine Chapel, or the American Civil War. They're going to amaze us by taking this extremely strange concept and somehow make us invested in the journey of this bar rag. Unfortunately, the episode utterly fails in achieving any of these goals. I don't really care about the rag. I don't care about Moe's attachment to it. I don't care where the rag ends up. And by some miracle, I care even less about the B-plot. That's how vacuous it is. Moe Goes From Rags to Riches might be the most substanceless episode in the entire series. At no point does anything really happen, and it's low-key insulting to think that this warm and fuzzy ending would get me. If we're talking sugar, this is like the Farmer Homer Sweet Sweet Sugar brand of endings, full of rocks and broken glass. I mean, if you guys want to do wacky shtick, do wacky shtick. Don't trot out Santa's Little Helper to desperately drum up some meaningful catharsis to this nothing burger. Say what you want about Saddlesore Galactica and those jockey elves, but at least that episode's not trying to sell you something. It knows this is a farce. Either get on board or don't. It doesn't care. The charitable interpretation is that Moe Goes From Rags to Riches is more ambitious than something like that. But really, it's more like the village drunk, stumbling around different avenues, trying to find someplace warm before it gets dark. I'm glad it slovenly insists upon how much it loves Moe, but look at yourself, man. You've pissed all over the floor. What are we supposed to do with this? I will say it is refreshing that this infamous episode doesn't have any characterization problems. We can't go to the old chestnut of, Homer's such an asshole, or I don't agree with their decisions. Those can be easy crutches. With Moe Goes From Rags to Riches, they had an ambitious concept, and they biffed it. It doesn't really come together at all. We're left with a handful of vignettes that are merely decent at their very best. Now, is Moe Goes From Rags to Riches the worst episode ever? No, but it's closer than I thought going into this. I half expected to become a mild apologist prior to the rewatches, because this is totally the kind of stupid thing I would try to reclaim, but I can't defend it. Its reputation is well deserved. As always, however, let me know in the comments where you land on it. Is Moe Goes from Rags to Riches the worst? Or are Simpsons fans being closed-minded to an offbeat idea? I would love to hear a passionate defense of this one, because I was just baffled by it, all the way through. As for the next episode, I think it's time to finally tackle the big kahuna. You know the one I'm talking about. I've been avoiding it for far too long. So next time in the series, we shall be exploring the true depths of the Simpsons canon. Should be a magical, monotonous time. So, as always, thanks for watching.